I stopped at Global Infusion for some tea, as you do, and I found one of these alien skulls stuck to a lamppost because it's got a magnet on the back, and I took it. And a few weeks before, as I was driving my car home, I noticed that one of these alien skulls was attached to my car. And I know the person who's actually behind these little skulls, these alien life forms that we've been seeing cropping up all over town. It's Russ Taber. And Russ Taber is working in idig3d, 3D printing, and he makes these, and he's here to tell us about them today. So where did the inspiration to do these little skulls come from?
Well, I was experimenting, or I was working with some beta software called Onshape, which is a great parametric CAD software. So parametric CAD allows you to change parameters, if you will, or variables or whatnot, things on the fly, so you're not stuck in a design. So say if like some holes and some drilling holes that you needed or whatnot went from 3 millimeters up to 5 millimeters, you could just change one and they all update. But the problem with CAD, everything looks so blocky, or not. It doesn't have the less organic. It looks very industrial. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to experiment, and then I created it's like, well, what's more organic than kind of a skull shape? I wanted to do something more organic, and usually in traditional CAD methods, everything's kind of blocky, circles, squares, spheres, cubes, cones. And my initial skull looked kind of like this, and it's not very organic looking. So then I experimented and used some different software, allows me to do more squash and stretch. And so I ended up modeling this, and a different type of software allows me to do more organic shapes. This, with 3D printing, it has layers and it splits in the back. But I was like, this is a good start. And so I ended up using some finishing techniques and smoothed it out. And basically, depending on the material you use, the plastic I use, which is ABS, which is an automotive style plastic, you can smooth it out using acetone or like nail polish remover. And so that's kind of the finished look that I had there. And you can see it's a bit larger. And it's a little daunting, but it's like, this is kind of interesting. And it evolved. And like, well, what if I made some smaller ones? Well, I made a white one first, to make kind of a larger sibling for this smaller alien. And then I thought, well, I'll make my own alien force here. You can see my printer has a little bit of an oops going on. And then,
now, we've been seeing these all over town. Where did you get the inspiration to put magnets in the back of them and then attach them to different magnetic or metal devices that you see throughout town?
Initially, I printed them as like large refrigerator magnets. And I thought, well, this will be a fun little event to put out and about. So how small can I go with these? So I went a bit smaller yet, and then started putting them on post because I thought, well, I could just, it's my little alien invasion of I call it 3D feety, like 3D graffiti. That's not too invasive, and they're magnets. So if you need to remove them, you can, or rehome them. So if you can see it, it's right there. Zoom in further, and it's just hanging on to anything that's, of a steel that or iron that will attract magnets.
So obviously they can change colors to their background, right? Like chameleon.
This one actually did, I'm sure. There's probably some cephalopod infusion where it allows it to, do the camouflage of, of its environment. So this one right here kind of stands out a little bit, but I think it fits well in with the spider webs that were hanging out from the spring and summer that collected at a coffee house on the west side. And this one found its way looking to hopefully catch some sports. This is at Houseman Field. Stop signs. street signs, power warnings, reinforcement metal plating for keeping walls from falling over. This one actually is still in the wild, and it's been out, I think the longest now. It's been over a year. It's actually in a fairly heavily trafficked area. I'm not going to say where, but its color does blend in well with the wall. People don't walk by so much as they kind of drive by or sit, in a window that's not too far.
Oh, that's a lot of good hints right there for anybody who wants to go out and find that little fella.
Again, they like the back of stop signs. Skulls sometimes find their way to cemeteries. But when I was printing them, I didn't have any way of communicating what they were, where they're from. They're just there. So I started testing to see how small I could print idig3d on the sides of them. And the initial larger one that I had, which is the refrigerator magnet, kind of an intermediate one, and then the smaller one at the top that I can print in larger quantity, but on the edges it says idig3d on the back. Again, here's another one that's still been out there. This is probably not as long as the other one. It's leaving a college somewhere.
Oh, You think, no, that one you think that would be really easy to spot because it's bright green against gray, or gray, but nobody has seen that one yet, or enough to take it.
I'm so shocked that no one has taken it, but...
Well, there's the thing. I had one attached to my car, and my car is silver, and the one that was attached to it was red. And I thought, well, that's really cool. Perhaps some little kid will see it when I park in the parking lot, at a grocery store, or at a gym, or somewhere. Some little kid would pick it up. But weeks went by, and nobody stole it. Are people just, like, not taking them, thinking that...
I think maybe they think they're permanently attached, possibly.
Okay.
Some other ones, actually, I had someone yell at me when I was in Easttown. It's like, swallow that or put it in your pocket. They thought I was sticking it on a lamppost. But I went by about 3-4 days later, and it was gone. So someone had already collected it. And
how many of these have you left all over town?
Hundreds, probably.
Okay. And you plan on doing this for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, it keeps evolving. Because as I put them out, I get some interaction with people. This one was actually outside of the police department all the way through Art Prize last year, which was very heavily trafficked. And I was surprised it wasn't taken. Someone, it sticks out a bit. But, I'm surprised the Grand Rapids Police Department didn't report it to ICE and then have it take away the illegal alien. Here's some other ones that are hanging out, 2 different sizes. This one's hidden inside an elevator that actually is now not working, and you have to use the stairs at a local thrift shop.
So this one is haunting a elevator somewhere.
Yeah, I think maybe the magnet is the tractor beam is keeping it from rising in the lift. So.
How hard is it to find different metal places to stick these things to?
Oh, it's easy. You just have one in your hand and you just run it by it. And it's like, oh, does this stick? But you start recognizing places that you can stick it. Yeah, because a fair amount of the stop signs, or not stop signs, but traffic poles and lights, or some of them are fiberglass. So you go to stick one on there, especially when I'm running. It's like, oh, wait, that didn't hold it. I got to catch it as it falls off. I'm thinking, but... Now I know better. It's like, okay, give it an extra half second and place it. But it is weird how I get reactions, because people will take these and, they start disappearing. And it's like, which is fine, because I want them to find new homes.
Mm-hmm.
Like actually at the Fulton Street Cemetery, I put a few on this side gate, and I had put a couple there last year, and someone had moved them. And then I saw a couple more come. I had, a handful of those on there, and then they were putting them on the back. So it wasn't, they were sort of interacting with me. It was almost sort of like a strange way of communicating. Like, okay, they like this stuff, so then I add a couple more. And then they move around, and then you find other people that were then collecting them. So there's collectors, and then there's people that just kind of interact with them and move them about.
Well, how do they get interacted with in some unusual ways that you've heard of so far?
Well, that was like the initial where they started moving them around on the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And this one actually is trying to invade a church. But, this is my traveling companion, and I was walking out to put some and then mark where they are. So there's one hiding up on this below the stop sign.
They're everywhere.
Well, often, but this was like my pink phase. I had some pink filament filament is basically the printing ink that you use in 3D printers. And so the littlest library in my neighborhood, I found a nail that it would stick to, or a screw, because the rest of it's all wood.
So it would be interesting on the little library box if somebody took an alien and brought a different alien back to you.
Well, what happened is I was surprised at how quickly those were disappearing. So I get a knock on my door on a Sunday afternoon after I'd actually just gone out for a little bit longer run. I was a little disappointed how quickly they were disappearing. It was just like, wow, because normally they would stick out, maybe a week or two, and these were disappearing within a day or two. So anyway, I hear my doorbell ring, and I go outside, and I'm looking down the street, and I'm on kind of an alley street, but my stature, it's hard for me to hide if people see me coming and going. And I do have a few aliens on my door and on the back of my car. So they kind of probably figured out that I was like the home of the mothership. So I get this doorbell, and I go outside, and there's a cigar box, like, okay. And I'm more intrigued instead of afraid. I don't think there's a bomb or anything. So then I open it up, and inside, it's an old Odin cigar box, and then inside there's a note with that's a walnut shell that's been carved to look like a skull with a black safety pin. And the note says, "Love your work and the adventure it gave us. Thank you, S&K. I have no clue who they are, and they had returned 15 of my skulls."
That's great.
So it was, I'm like, all right, I have more skulls to put out. And then they start traveling further, as I run out further. This was, I put some of these out during the Riverbank run. I do the 5K. My nephew was doing the 10K. I don't know if he noticed them. I'm sure he didn't mention anything. This is with all the gates set up, or the fencing set up for the Riverbank 5K. Again, that one was looking, down the street as people were heading into the home stretch. This is below the 10K sign that was, running right after me.
I see it.
This one right here is outside of Madcap. I don't know why. They tend to gather around coffee houses for some reason. And the local news had posted something on Twitter, and they had their own photo. And actually, I found my skull within one of their photos that they had posted. You can see it up at the very top right. And
all that activity, all that action, and yet nobody saw it and grabbed it.
Or they saw it, and they, again, maybe, their vision, big chunk of bubble gum or something.
Well, have you seen any instances where people had posted a focused picture of one of your beings on Flickr or Facebook or Twitter or anything like that?
Not yet. And that's actually my next evolution of this, is that I want to create sort of an added interaction with it. This one right here actually had been moved. This is a white one on the Blue Bridge. This was actually over on one of the side streets when I did the Riverbank 5K. So when I ran across the Blue Bridge, that one did not exist on the Blue Bridge. I was going to put one there, like, wow. So they're migrating. Again, this one has been there since Art Prize. It's not as old as quite the other ones, but.
So we haven't had an Art Prize in a year, so that one's been hanging out for a year.
Yeah. So
okay.
This one's been there for a while. As you can see, it's losing some of its day glow color. And I think that one has just been found within the past month or so. Again, this one right here, I started with interaction. Someone along Fulton Street where I run had some shepherd hooks hanging plants. And I put one out there and it didn't disappear. They're like, I saw him watering his plants. I'm like, okay. So I put a second one a few days later. Nothing happened. It was like he left them there. His plants got watered. And so then I swapped colors. Then I moved this one to this pole around the corner. And I kind of forgot about it for a few days. And then I'd go to swap it again, and they had put a note under it. And so they started interacting with me. So it says, these little guys are out of this world. I didn't notice when I went by the shepherd's hooks hanging plants, but they had put some extra signs on each come in, please. And then take me to your leader.
And you didn't do this. Somebody that you don't even know has decided to interact with them in this unique way.
Yes, and it blew my mind because they actually spent the time to write the notes, cut them out, and then laminate them. It would at least last, while, for a bit. Again, hidden. Another interaction that happened a bit after those was I didn't realize it until late. My skulls had started changing color, but I didn't check them because I was just running by them.
Right.
I did grab one, and someone had taken the time to take one or many, I'm sure. But the other ones that I looked for that I thought the color looked off, they took them home and spray painted them gold and put them back out. I have no clue. Again, it's just this crazy interaction. These aliens are, forming their own or evolving as well. I got inspiration from Easttown, or actually this Easttown, maybe East Hills, QR codes. They're putting out these are called throwies. Basically, it's a watch cell battery, and they put a LED on there, and they will run, depending on the LED, for days. So they have like a little light. But they put a QR code on there. And that's the one that I had found in the neighborhood. And then it links to an actual animated GIF, the QR code, if you scan it in with your phone or mobile device. And it they had put actually a couple out, and then this one actually has another message. So it's like, wow, okay, maybe I should start adding QR codes to my aliens. And so then I started, how small can I go?
And still have the QR code be scannable and recognizable?
Yeah, and then I like, well, okay, this will take him just to, a static web page. And it's like, that's okay. You can say, hey, you found an alien. But then I thought, what's the next step? So I decided generative QR code, so they would have the kind of their own serial number, and then hopefully I'll create a web app that will then generate like an alien name, what galaxy they came from, what, planet, what relatives and whatnot that they have.
So this is like a real tactile Pokemon.
Yeah, it's,
It's not like the Pokemon Go where you look on your phone. You have to go out in the real world and find these. And your interaction is you can take your phone, look at the QR code, and find out more specifically about that particular alien life form.
And then, create some interaction. They want to sign up for like a newsletter, eventually like to have like some t-shirt giveaway or, have some other, what's going on, it's,
Tell us about idig3d and what your plans for the future are with it.
Well, idig3d was, initially I was going to make a bunch of strange things to offset my 3D printing addiction or costs. But I like doing CAD modeling, creating things that didn't exist. For a while I was involved with a local inventors group, helped a couple people actually create some 3D printed models that they needed to for their inventions or their ideas. And just creating some of my own ideas. I like the amalgam of kind of like science and art. So like lamps for some reason I'm drawn to, and clocks right now. So I've been creating some, last Christmas I had a bunch of little Christmas trees that I had created, and then some larger ones which actually had disco lights in them. And as the lights rotate and do their disco effect. The tree shade, it projects like a Northern Lights kind of experience, and it's really fascinating. It's just the way the 3D printing kind of refracts the light as the disco light, shines its way out, tries to shine its way out through it.
So it has appeared to me that it's become an all-consuming passion with you, just about. Is there a day that goes by where you're not looking at something with the idea of 3D printing in your head?
Well, the consumption is gone a bit, but it's a tool. It's like a drill or a hacksaw or whatnot. It's something. It's a means to an end, and it's initially the first year or so when they print, they're mesmerizing. My record was staring at my printer with my face right over it for probably about 50 minutes. Didn't realize the time. I'm just watching. It was just, okay, it's moving, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, is it going to make this gap here? Because it's, it does some interesting stuff that people have figured out over the time, that you can actually print in the air if you have a spot based on one side, and it'll stretch it and then attach on the other side, and then it'll build up on top of that. And it's mesmerizing. So I end up moving most of my printers out to a different room, so I would be less apt to just lean in and stare at them.
I love what you had to share, and thanks for joining us today.